Hi friends, let's talk about climate change again. Okay, so there's this kind of ideological square dance going on in every video I watch or article I read about climate change these days. You've got collecting their trash in a mason jar people over on one side, and your individual actions don't matter, the corporations won't act people over here, and the rest of us are in the middle getting swung around and around trying to keep up and not stomp on anybody's feet. Do individual actions matter? Is it all meaningless? I'm not even engaging with that question today, not on ItsRadishTime. Instead, I'm going to ask you a different question that I'm obsessed with lately. What feels like an individual action that isn't an individual action? See how that feels different? Instead of being like an I don't know what I should be doing nightmare, it feels like a riddle or a game that you get to play and feel clever and interesting. You know about this game already, right? If you vote, contact your city council members, get involved in local politics, it's the most glass slipper example of a collective action that's also just kind of a bunch of simultaneous individual ones. It feels too small to be significant, but it's not. So what else feels like an individual action, but isn't an individual action? What could mean more? I want to know what you think in the comments, but I'll tell you what I've arrived at so far. Sending an email. I mean, email stops for no global tragedy, right? If you have to sit there and send emails all day, how could it be a climate action? Maybe you email your boss. If you're a person who ever has to do business travel, those flights add up. If you have to attend or especially plan any of that travel, you could send an email and ask if all or part of it could be done over Zoom. There's an example of some Microsoft employees starting a campaign called Just Use Teams because Microsoft is one of the largest corporate buyers of flights, and they also make their own video conferencing software. That campaign started in the fall of 2021, and in March, Microsoft introduced new carbon penalties for their internal departments for the emissions that they create, including from business travel. You could copy that whole campaign, or you could just send an email and find out how many companies would be thrilled to not have to cover flight and hotel expenses for you to go to a useless conference. Or if you're still in school, you can send an email about your campus's food systems or waste systems. An email that I sent my sophomore year ended up getting all of our dining halls to compost food scraps. Here's another email I've been sending a lot lately. If you get served a fossil fuel ad on a YouTube video or in your favorite podcast, especially if it's like Exxon talking about how they're good for the planet now or that kind of thing, DM the creator. Tell them. Most of the time, they don't know what ads are getting placed on their content unless they're doing the ad read, but there are things that they can do to block certain advertisers. I'll link a newsletter below from Emily Atkin about how fossil fuel ads are meant to mislead people into thinking they're not really bad for everyone and everything, or worse, that they're helping fix climate change somehow. And when media entities run those ads, they give credibility to that lie. We shouldn't let fossil fuel companies get away with it. And like half a dozen people I've emailed in 2022 were like, holy shit, I did not know that they were using my platform to do this. I will put a stop to it immediately. Then I don't have to see that ad, and the rest of their viewers don't either. Let them know with a friendly DM or an email. Okay, last type of email I like to send is a just checking in kind of thing to the brands that I spend my money on. It's been very trendy in the past 5-ish years for brands to release sustainability plans for how they're going to be net zero by 2050. It's almost always net zero, it's almost always 2050. These are not terrible goals, but sometimes they were written to be just vague enough and just far away enough so as to not really mean anything. So the tone that I like to take is to play like an absolute innocent fool and just ask them to specify things. Like when you say net zero, how much of that is a reduction in current emissions versus purchasing offsets? Which is maybe a whole different video, but I'll put some links for you. Or where can I find regular updates on your progress to this goal? Or hey, what are your plans to offer refillable packaging? Or do you have any programs in the works for reusing post-consumer products? You can do this for really big brands, which is how I found out that the place I buy my jeans will mend them for free if I bring them into a store when the inner thighs are starting to wear thin. Or for small brands, which is how I found out that the woman who makes the scented candles I like lives a bike ride away, and she'll take my empty jars and put a new candle in them. Maybe not a huge impact individually, but when brands offer things like refills and repairs because they think people value that, that's not just for me, that's for everyone who buys that product. I'm finding a lot of interesting information, both pleasant and terrifying, by sending emails. But it's information that I can use in making my individual decisions, and it's information that big corporations can use in making theirs, because corporations exist to maximize profits, right? And at a certain point, responsibility for the climate has to be a factor in their consideration, being less destructive will be the thing that makes the most financial sense because there are no celebrity eyeshadow palette sales on a dead planet. But what we can do is make that point come sooner rather than later, because the sooner it comes, the more we can salvage. If we feel too individual, too small, too powerless, we lose. We lose everything. But if we find a little power in something that feels small, as often as we can, I have to wake up every day and believe that we'll win. So again, with my full and sincere curiosity, what do you think could maybe work as an individual action that isn't an individual action? What experiments could we run? What games could we play? What questions could we ask? What emails could we send? Let me know in comments, and if you want to keep this conversation rolling past today, you can also join our Discord server and keep talking and reading and asking there. I will see you soon. Bye!